Hey Fruit Faces, it's Clary Berry here, and I just want to talk with you guys a little bit about grass-fed beef. I had a girl on Instagram the other day on one of my pictures talk about how unhealthy my diet was and how healthy her high-fat grass-fed beef and GMO alcohol and all this other stuff. I saw a Snickers bar on one of her Instagram pictures. I don't know, but she started attacking me because she said I eat Subway, which is GMO, and I eat corn tortillas at a restaurant, which is GMO. So these are things that I do very infrequently, but she wanted to pick those out and attack them and and over again, kind of invalidate my whole entire diet because of these few piece items, which I thought was funny because I was just talking about one piece of her diet. So that goes to show. I mean, if you really want to break it down, I could sit here and talk for hours about how avoiding dairy, eggs, and everything else besides beef is way healthier. But I didn't even have a chance to get into that with her. She just wasn't listening to any of my discussions. But I wanted to share kind of what I learned because I learned some new things in delving into this. Because this girl actually said, she tried to claim that grass fed beef does not make any emissions and that it's only the soy and grain fed that's hurting the environment so much. And so, I had to look that up. And it's actually the opposite of true. But I'll get into that in a minute. Of course, I brought up to her many times that you cannot be an environmentalist and eat meat of any kind. It's unsustainable on either level. And the grass-fed beef people are just trying to point the finger at the conventional grass-fed people, which a lot of times it's two in one, and it's just the people who think they eat a lot of good meat, and they're like forgetting how much factory farmed animals. I mean, 80 to 90% of all of the animals are factory farmed here. So it's kind of like people like to think, oh yeah, mostly I eat grass fed, so it's okay. But I'm here to tell you guys, first of all, grass fed label doesn't mean anything. Especially if it's 100%, it does mean, if it says 100% grass-fed beef, then it does mean that it's 100% grass-fed beef. That is an actual legit label, but that still doesn't mean that 100% grass-fed beef is good for you or good for the environment or sustainable on any level. I don't think it's good for you. Too much fat. There's other pollutants that can get into, that obviously are going to get in. Any air pollution is going to get into that cow and into the tissue, the fatty tissue that you're eating. Any water pollution. There's pharmaceuticals in the water. There's heavy metals in the water. And it's all getting into that cow, and you're ingesting that sort of thing. Not to mention feces. I mean, 20% of all meat products had feces in them when they studied it. So, and that happens across the board. So if it's not 100% labeled, even if it says grass-fed beef, then it could be basically living its life indoors with a tiny little bit of outside time. Just like I talked about the other day when I talked about the turkey, the free-range turkey. It's all a lie as well. And the thing is grass-fed beef costs a lot more. And some people say it tastes better, some people say it tastes worse. That's kind of beside the point. But the main point is this is an elitist food. This is a food you're paying to use more resources, more animals' lives, obviously, more pollution, more everything, every resource pretty much that we have, water, food, land, all of it is going to be used more to make this food for you, when you could just be eating something that contributes a lot less to global warming and everything like that. That's kind of a whole nother issue, though. I don't want to get too much into the environment until that part of the environmentalist issue. But just know that if it says grass beef, it could be, like I said, in an area where it doesn't get to go outside at all and it gets to go into the pasture for 5 minutes a day. Or it could just be, and it could be both, that they're not actually eating grass during the winter because it's not available, and they're getting fattened at the end also with corn and grain and soy and all of that stuff that they really shouldn't be eating, and everybody knows that. Even grass-fed beef, you heard me right, guys, even grass-fed beef is getting fed GMO feed. And not only that, but they're also getting fed, unless they are 100% organic, they are possibly being fed back blood meal from cows, chickens, sheep, any other animal. The sick downer cows are going back into the feed. It's technically illegal, but nobody pays attention and nobody enforces it, so it continues to go on. That's why many other countries do not accept U.S. meat because we don't test our meat for mad cow either, but that's a whole nother issue again. So we have to remember that feedlots actually began, factory farming began because of the fact that grass-fed beef is fucking unsustainable. I don't see how people don't get this. In this day and age, they're trying to act like, oh, people just act like they're such environmentalists when they're really not. There's no way to meet the demand in this whole entire world of meat, eggs, and milk by doing it grass-fed beef or factory farming. I mean, obviously either way is unsustainable, but the factory farms were made because there was not enough room for all of the livestock, okay? 30% of our land is already, in the America at least, 30% of our land, no, 30% I think of the world, one of the two, is already used to produce these animals. Think about how much more food we could actually make by growing the grain and the soy for ourselves. We could end world hunger 3 times over if we use the land for what it is made to be used for, growing crops, not raping and killing animals. But anyway, so it's obviously unsustainable. It's an entitled thing. You're contributing to world hunger when you support this type of an industry. And not only that, but grass-fed beef is 80% of what's killing the rainforest. I mean, they're cutting down in the past 20 years, 80% of the land that the rainforest that they cut down was to make room for the grass-fed beef to graze and also for soy to go into growing. Because let's not forget, 97% of soy goes to the animals. 70% of grains goes to the animals. 50% of water goes to the animals. If we cut all that out, we wouldn't be worried about a drought and lack of water. We wouldn't have people dying on this planet for lack of water. It's just so obvious. People need to wake up and stop believing this propaganda, underground propaganda from the dairy and milk industries. Greenhouse gases. Yes, pasture animals create 50% more carbon and, well, I don't know if it's carbon, but just greenhouse gas emissions than regular ones. Nathan Peltier did the study, Nova Scotia, 50% more emissions. Not only that, but it doesn't matter what type of animal agriculture you're doing, grass-fed, clearing the lots displaces animals. It makes animals go extinct and also other native species. It's just absolutely horrible, not to mention the animal cruelty that goes into that is still the same. You're still eating a being that wants to live, a being that has a mom and has babies, a being that is meant to live for much longer than it's allowed to live in much better conditions than it's being raised. Again, check your grass-fed beef labels if you are going to eat a grass-fed beef, which I definitely don't recommend because anything over 20% of your diet in animal protein is shown to create cancer, as the China study shows. So welcome to, the future, guys. Welcome to the new age where we're just not being... Some of us are, obviously. Some of us are still being swindled, but that the information is out there. And when you have this much information on our environment, you cannot go on supporting this type of an industry. You're a total hypocrite if you're going to sit there and say you care about the environment and you're going to continue to eat any kind of beef or meat because it's absolutely horrible for the environment, especially grass-fed beef. So steer clear of it. I believe, if you're going to cut out one meat for the environment, it's probably a pretty close toss-up between chicken and beef, but I'm pretty sure that I'd say as far as greenhouse gas goes, knock out the beef first and you'll feel so much better. It'll be so much better for the earth. You can feel happy that you're making good decisions. Ditch the grass-fed beef. Doesn't even mean anything anyway. You got to go to the farm. You got to see what they're doing. They're still giving these animals vaccines and antibiotics. There's no law that says you can't give your your animal antibiotics. It's done a little bit differently, but grass-fed beef is still having all this nasty stuff for real. If you don't believe me, go look it up. And yeah, I'm gonna get on with my day. Talk to you guys later. Don't forget to eat your fruit. Stay vegan. Best for the environment.